this back page is mostly asking you to factor in order to solve these. So I want to go over, before I do some examples, I want to go over the methods that we have for factoring. So we'll call this factoring methods. And there's four main methods that we have for factoring. The first method is just factoring out a common factor. So that's something like this. So if you have 2x plus 4, those have a common factor. They're both divisible by 2. So we could pull out a 2 and we would have x plus 2 left over. So that's pulling out a common factor. Your common factor could also be a letter. So we'll call this an example. We'll call this an example 2. So it could be a letter. Your common factor could be a letter or a variable. So let's say we have x squared plus 2x. Notice this has x to the power of 2 and this has x. So we can always pull out our lowest power on x, which is in this case 1. So if you divide everything through by x squared divided by x is x, plus we're going to have 2, and then x divided by x is just 1. So this is just x times x plus 2. The next method that we have is if we have 3 terms and it looks like, and it's in this form, we have x squared plus bx plus c. So where the number in front is, the number in front of x squared here is 1. So for this one, we find factors of c that add to b. So just as a little example here, let's say we have x squared plus 5x plus 6. So we would find the factors of c. So in this case, c is 6. They add up to b, which is 5. So here c is 6 and b is 5. So we want them to multiply to 6. So the factors of 6, 1 and 6, and 2 and 3. So which of those add up to 5? Well, it's 2 and 3. So this factors as x plus 2 times x plus 3. The next method that we've used, we'll call it method 3, is difference of 2 squares. So do you have something that looks like a squared minus b squared? And oftentimes the a is going to be x. So if you see x squared minus a number that's a perfect square, then you have a difference of 2 squares. So this factors as, so a squared minus b squared factors as a plus b times a minus b. So just as an example of that, let's say x squared minus 4. Well, x could be written as x to the power of 2, bring down the minus, and 4 is a perfect square. It can be written as 2 squared. So x is your a, 2 is your b. So just plug them into this. So this factors as, so x squared minus 4 factors as x minus 2 times x plus 2. And then there's one additional method to factoring that I want to go over with you that we haven't looked at together yet. The back here. So there's really like really there's 2 more. This one and one other. So you could factor, so factoring 3 terms again, except this time the number in front of x squared is not equal to 1. So ax squared plus bx plus c. So the way we factor, so if the number in front of x squared is some other number other than 1, the way we would factor it is this. We would take factors of a times c that add to b, and then we'll factor this one by grouping. So let me show you an example of how to do this one. So let's say we have 3x, no, let's say 2x squared plus 11x plus 12. So let's say we're trying to factor this. Notice there's no number that's common between 2, 11, and 12. So I can't factor out a common factor. And furthermore, notice this a is 2, not 1. So you have to use factors of a times c that add up to b. So a times c, 2 times 12, is 24. So we'll find the factors of 24 that add up to b, which is 11. So the factors of 24, 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. So obviously 3 and 8 add up to 11. So the way this is a little bit different than what we did when a was 1 is this time we have to substitute it in as such. So we have to do 2x squared plus 11x plus 12. And we're going to split up 11x using 3 and 8. So this will be 2x squared. We'll say plus 3x plus 8x plus 12. So what factoring did for us here is it allowed us to split 11 up into two factors that when you multiply, you get 24. And when you add, you get 11. So next, we're going to factor by grouping. So we're going to group the first two together, the second two together. If you want, you can rearrange these two terms. So you could have 8 and 3 here. So you could say this is 2x squared plus 8x plus 3x plus 12. And then you can factor, or you can just leave it like this. In this case, it's okay to leave it like this. So between x squared and x, you can pull an x. And between 2 and 3, there's nothing common. So we'll call this 2x plus 3. Next, this is positive, so plus 8. Between 8 and 12 is a 4. So we'll pull up factor out of 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 12 divided by 4 is 3. Notice now I have 2x plus 3 and 2x plus 3. And then what's left is the x plus 4. So that's going to be its own factor. Okay. So that's how you factor when a is not 1. Now I told you that you could have flipped 8 and 3 around. And the reason why that might be useful is that notice that I could 2 and 8 are both even, and then so I could find a common factor there. Then 3 and 12 also I could find a common factor. So if you wanted to flip them, you could do 2x squared plus 8x plus 3x plus 12. And then common between 2 and 8 is 2. And then common between x and x is, x squared and x is x. So I got x plus 4. Then notice now I got 3 and 12. So common between 3 and 12 is a 3. So I'm going to put plus 3 because it's positive. And then 3 divided by 3 is 1. So it's just going to be 1x. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So this time I have x plus 4. And then what's left is the 2x plus 3. So the x plus 4 was the common factor there. So notice either way I get the same product. And then when you're working with quadratics, if you're in doubt, if they're asking you to solve, you can use the quadratic formula only when you're solving. If they are just asking you to factor, then you need to use one of the 4 methods that I listed. If they ask you to solve, which they do in 26 to 34, and you have a quadratic, it's safe to go ahead and use. So if you're solving this, let's say equals 0. So it's safe to go ahead and use the quadratic formula. You can say x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. So, and then you just would identify what is a equal to, what is b equal to, and what is c equal to. Make sure to include the signs. So is it positive, is it negative? And then you'll just plug them into the quadratic formula, and that will tell you what your x values are.